Hello and welcome back to another episode of LJ Lit Reader. I'm LJ and I'm here to talk about books. This is just going to be a light reading vlog because I've only read 1.5 books. So I just thought I'd update you on what's going on with me following my September TBR. It's the 6th of September today. So not great progress, but I'm happy with what I've achieved. What's going on with me at the moment? Well, this week's been my son's first week at school, so that's been a shock to the system, and he's loving it, so that's really positive, and I'm really chuffed that he's settled in as well as he has and that everything's gone to plan. I've also started Monjaro. I'm currently suffering from a bit of indigestion at the moment, so I think that's to do with that. So if I look a bit uncomfortable, that's why. But other than that, you know, no big changes, just plodding on, happy LJ, happy life, and doing really well in terms of my mental health at the moment. I was actually complimented by Stuart on Friday and he said that I looked really well and he was really pleased with me, so that was a really positive thing to hear, and I feel really good in myself at the moment. I feel like despite how hard things have been recently, things are going much better now and in a good direction. So fingers crossed that will carry on and everything will be bright and happy. What do I want to talk about today? Well, there's 2 books I'm going to talk about today. The first one is Think Again by Jacqueline Wilson, which I'm very sad to report I DNF'd at 30% on page 104. This story follows Ellie Allard at 40 and her life with her daughter Lottie, returning characters such as Magda, Nadine, Eggs, and Dad and Anna. For some reason I thought she was called Nadia, so I don't know where that came from, but it's Nadine. And sorry about that in my TBR that I said Nadia. It's basically Jacqueline Wilson's first adult novel, and I just couldn't get on board with it at all. The writing style was the same as her other books, and therefore we were looking into the mind of a 40-year-old who acted like a 14-year-old. And I think that was a big problem for me, especially as obviously the previous reference point for all of us is Ellie at 13, 14, not grown up, not developed at all. And so we've jumped back into a 13, 14-year-old character who seems to have had little to no character development whatsoever. It was a very juvenile 40-year-old, and it made for uncomfortable reading because one of the premises of the beginning of the book was a return of lots of old characters, and it felt like shoehorning them in, and it felt uncomfortable, and it felt like they shouldn't have been part of the book because she was 40, and at 40 these people aren't part of your life. So yeah, it was uncomfortable. I just found a mature woman with a 14-year-old subconscious thoughts irritating and annoying. And I found it detracted from the story. I am quite concerned that I have fallen out of love with Jacqueline Wilson, and I think this is a sign for me to not give any more of her books a go at the present moment, because I feel like it will just leave me with disappointment. I don't know, I think it was the writing style, it just didn't work for me. And I feel like maybe Jacqueline Wilson just caters to children. She just doesn't quite hit the same notes for adults, and I think there's a degree of nostalgia to it, and I kind of enjoyed it initially. And then I just got really tired of how tedious the conscious thought of a 14-year-old in a 40-year-old's body was. I don't know, her worrying about the same things that she was worrying about at 14 just felt really annoying, and I just wasn't on board with it. I just felt like there should have been some character development, and I felt deeply concerned about Lottie's conception and the way that that was written in. I felt like that did the character a dirty, and therefore she's emotionally stumped because she's not grown at all. She's just a child in a woman's body. I did try 104 pages, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and I just couldn't get on board with it at all. And so yeah, I couldn't go any further than that. I'm really sorry I couldn't give this a better review because, again, I DNF'd at 30%, so I can't give you anything honest and open about the book. I didn't give it a chance further than that, and I feel like maybe it's me as a reader, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace for it, but it just got on my tits, and I just was like, I can't be fucked with this anymore. I just felt disappointed in where Ellie's decisions and life had ended her up, and where she was as a character. It just felt like she'd been done a dirty. And I think it's also painfully obvious that Jacqueline Wilson has never had a tattoo, because the descriptions of Ellie getting a tattoo right at the beginning of the book was laughable at the very least. Like, it was like she'd googled how do you get a tattoo, and then she'd written it verbatim into the book, and it just felt painful. I haven't got much more to add. I did look on Goodreads for the general consensus as to what other people thought, and I was gratified to find that other people had found it juvenile and uncomfortable and cringeworthy, which was how I was feeling, so I'm glad I wasn't alone in feeling like that. I'm just sad and disappointed by it, and I don't think I'll give it another go. I think it's going to go in the bin. Luckily it was 99p, so I'm not really like wasting too much money by saying kibosh. But yeah, that one was a disappointment to me, and I'm really sad about it. So the next book I'm going to talk about is Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker. This I rated 4 stars in the end. I can't say I enjoyed it, but I definitely was engaged by it. So this follows the story of Coraline Zhang, who witnesses the brutal murder of her sister. Her sister is pushed in front of a train and decapitated. And let me just tell you, this book holds no details spare. It is gory as fuck. Cora becomes a crime scene cleaner, and along with her 2 colleagues, Harvey and... I'm going to attempt to pronounce this name. I'm going to go with Yifei. Something along those lines. And the premise of the book is that she's navigating 2020 pandemic year as a Chinese woman who is a Chinese American. So she's been born and raised in America, but she's Chinese. She knows a bit of Mandarin, but not loads. She feels out of place in both cultures, and obviously at the moment there is an rife racism going towards the Asian American community in America at that time. I had no idea how bad it was. I am baffled by how terrible Americans treated Chinese Americans in 2020. Although this book doesn't discriminate against just Chinese Americans, but anyone of Asian descent. During this book there is a apparent serial killer going around killing Asian American women and leaving bats behind at the crime scene in the general area or inside the women's bodies. It's pretty fucking horrific. I would say that anyone that was planning to read this to check the trigger warnings. It's not for the faint of heart. It's definitely written in a very graphic and gory way, and it is one of the most bizarre stories I've read in my entire life. The main theme of this book is raw and filthy racism. The slur bat eater is about the COVID-19 virus coming from China because allegedly someone ate a diseased bat. I remember the rumour, but I don't think it was actually the truth. But in this book, the Americans of New York City have ran with it and are being incredibly hostile and suspicious of anyone of Asian descent or ethnicity, and are calling them bat eaters and referring to it as the China virus. I honestly had no idea how racist Americans are in this modern day and age. Like, you know, you think about the history of America and you think about segregation and how Americans treated the black community, and you kind of think of it as the past, and you don't really think of it as the present day, because obviously you have Black Lives Matter and everything like that. And I felt really uneducated and ignorant when I was reading this, and it kind of blew me away. I didn't realise that during the pandemic it was this bad, and it really does make for some gritty and horrific reading. It was a shocking and uncomfortable read. The social commentary's quite hard-hitting, especially around the objectification of Asian women, the racism around Americans and people of Asian ethnicity. It feels surreal that people were allowed to be quite so awful under the guise of fear of a virus, and allowed to be so prejudiced and so disgusting. And I just felt really disturbed just by how powerful the writing was and how it captured such a uncomfortable, dirty feeling that people were part of this and people ran with such rife misconceptions. This book is a full-on gore fest. From the very start right up to the end, it was stomach churning, uncomfortable, and it made me feel quite sick in places. The descriptions of the crime scenes, the descriptions of the murders, the descriptions of things that take place are not for the faint of heart. I don't normally read horror, but my friends had given this one a go and I was intrigued by it. It sounded interesting and it came up on my TBR and I was like, let's give this a go. But I think the reality of actually reading it has it's got me shook. And I think it's good to bear in mind that this isn't just a horror story in terms of grisly murders and gory crime scenes, but it's also supernatural horror as well. And it follows the month of the Hungry Ghost Festival. And I didn't know much about the month of the Hungry Ghosts, but in Chinese culture, there are ghosts that are hungry, and if you don't feed them or placate them, they will eat you, or they will eat whatever they can get their hands on, and it's pretty fucking horrific. And it kind of reminded me of like The Grudge and The Ring. Like, what was that?
Oh, I'm choking.
Okay, Carl's just choking there in the corner. But it was like that kind of supernatural horror, ghosty, things coming out of the walls, kind of scary supernatural situation. Bat Eater swings comfortably between violent racism, crime scene horror to the visceral and terrifying hungry ghosts that haunt Cora and her friends. There's no stone unturned. Like, this writing is visceral and gripping. Cora is a complex character, sometimes unlikable, who is dealing with trauma of her sister's death and her upbringing, and also some severe mental health problems. I think she may suffer from some kind of OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, however you want to call it, and it juxtaposes against the messiness of her job the fact that she's compulsively cleaning her flat, her hands, and can't cope with eating things that she doesn't know where they've come from or like where they've been cooked, and she's constantly obsessed with germs and things that are unclean, and she frequently talks about how unclean New York is, and how, I remember one phrase sticks in my mind, that it has pizza grease coming from its pores of the city. Obviously you've got her horrific job where she's cleaning up crime scenes with like brain matter and blood and bodily fluids, and she talks about eye jelly quite a lot, and it's like, oh, it's grim. I just think it's fascinating that someone who suffers so much and so strongly from her mental health disorders and her compulsive needs to clean, and then she deals with these really horrific crime scenes, which, you know, at one point she pulls a bat from the bath and then throws up, and it's like really, oh, it's just horrific. It was just upsetting, and I just found it sad that we had to explore the depths of her suffering with her mental health, and you just wanted to give her a big hug. But then at the same time, sometimes her mental health made her make unlikable decisions or act in an unlikable way, and then you just kind of wanted to go to her, oh, come on, just don't do that. You know, you've got people here who care about you, who love you, just go to them. But suffering from mental health myself, I can understand the push and pull that it entails. You push and pull, you push and pull, and sometimes people aren't always there to catch you. But luckily in her case, Cora did have a strong foundation of found family, which was really nice. I found some of her decision making incredibly frustrating, but I really enjoyed the found family element of the story. It lifted it up from the dark. There was lots of good banter and jokes, and it kind of detracted away from some of the more grittier aspects of the novel. And I think it was especially important as Cora's family were always clashing with her, like she hadn't been looked after properly by her family. She'd been carted from pillar to post as a child, unwanted. Her father lives in China and would just send her money and ask for reports on her welfare from her aunt. And she's got two very strong character aunts. You've got the white aunt who's a Christian and wants her to go to church in order to, I don't know, it was kind of like a bribe, like if you go to church and do exactly what I say, I'll pay your student loan debt. So she's trying to appease that aunt for that reason. And then she's got a Chinese aunt called Auntie Zheng, who was really intense, and because Cora's beliefs clashed with hers, their relationship was quite strained. But as the novel progresses, Auntie Zheng is fucking top notch and brilliant and a class act. So I think Auntie Zheng was a fucking gem, and I think Aunt Lois can go hang as far as I'm concerned, because you don't get to force people to do things. And the way she treated her as a second class citizen as well just made me feel uncomfortable. I think that was the point, that there was that white supremacy thing going on and it was uncomfortable. I think it was definitely a solid 3-star, low 4-star for me, and I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I was engaged and intrigued by the mystery. So if you fancy a hard, nail-biting exploration of 2020, systematic racism and police manipulation, incompetence and cover-ups, and the general atmosphere of COVID-19, this book is definitely for you. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the plot because I want the mystery and the suspense to still steal you away. And I think if you're up for it and your stomach is hardy enough and you're not going to get sick easily by gory and graphic descriptions of blood and guts, then, you know, definitely give this a go. There's a lot of twists and turns that will make you gasp, cringe and have to look away briefly before you have to go back into it for more. I found the ending made for difficult reading and I found it really upsetting, and it made me feel very frustrated. And so it's not a happy ending, so please don't go into it with expectations of a happy ending because there isn't one. But yeah, I would absolutely give it a go, and yeah, again, check for trigger warnings and make sure that your constitution is up to it. But I don't want to say enjoyed because I didn't enjoy it. I am glad that I read it and I'm glad that I gave it a go, but I'm definitely going to look for something a bit more lighter next. I actually just finished a manga today about it's called My Happy Marriage. There's a Netflix series of it which is really cute and just fluffy, so I just read the first volume of the manga for that, and that was really nice and I really enjoyed that. But I think next, well, I already know what I'm going to be reading next, and I think it's also going to be quite intense, but in a different way. The next book I'm going to be reading is Guild by Raven Kennedy. It was chosen on a poll on Discord just a minute ago, so that's my next book and that will be what I'm reading next. I'm really looking forward to it. It was on my TBR. Leah's been banging on about it for God knows how long, and I think I can't avoid her wrath any longer and I'm going to have to give it a go. But I hope everyone's having a really good week, and I hope that you're all reading really good books, and it'd be really nice to know what you're all reading. And I also want to know if anyone's watching these all the way to the end, so I'm going to ask a question. If you are watching this now, I'd love for you to pose me a question, any question that you've been wanting to ask me, about my life, about books I read, about anything. But if you are watching and you've got to this far, please comment me a question. I'd love to answer it in the next video. That would be something really fun to do, and maybe you could treat it as a get to know the YouTuber or get to know me, or it could be as simple as what you're having for dinner tomorrow, which I think will probably be a pork roast. Yeah, look at me making a pork roast. Well, hey. I love you all and so much. Thank you so much for watching and being here with me. I appreciate you endlessly, and I hopefully will see you again with more books and more things to say. Bye bye.